Hi, I'm Renarta Clanton Moyd. I'm a communications specialist with the Cumberland County Schools and your host of Get Connected. During this monthly show, we highlight numerous educational topics that face today's student, educator, and parent in the Cumberland County Schools. Now, research has found that attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, is a common behavioral disorder that affects an estimated 8 to 10% of school-aged children, with boys being 3 times more likely than girls to be diagnosed. Now, the prevalence of ADHD often impairs a child's ability to function socially, academically, and at home. Even so, with proper care, children with ADHD can learn to live successfully. Now, after this break, we'll talk with 2 school psychologists to learn more about ADHD in children on this edition of Get Connected.
The odds of a child being in a fatal automobile accident are 1 in 23,000. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 166. The odds say it's time to listen. To learn the signs of autism, visit autismspeaks.org.
Don't walk. Don't walk. Walk. Do not enter. Hot dogs. Definitely like hot dogs. Motorcycle club. Everything must go. Ghostly ghouls. Don't look at that, Teddy. Body piercing. Ouch.
Everyday moments can become teaching moments because learning starts long before school does. Give your child the start they need at bornlearning.org.
Again, thanks for joining us for this edition of Get Connected, where we're talking with Lisa Craver, who is the Cumberland County School Psychological Services Coordinator, and Heather Ayers, who is a school psychologist in the system. Lisa, Heather, welcome.
Hi, Renarta. It's good to be here.
Thank you for having us. All right. You know what, Lisa? We have you here quite often, it seems, lately. And every time you bring us a new
I do. I have plenty
person
to choose from.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I was excited to bring Heather with us this time because she has lots of ideas on how to help parents and teachers on this particular subject. So
yeah,
I was
sweet
really.
to say.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true.
Well,
Very
that's
true.
good. All right. Well, you know what? Let's jump in then.
Let's do it.
Okay. First of all, what does ADHD stand for?
It stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder.
Okay. And that is exactly what?
What it looks like in terms of the characteristics are, there are actually at least 3 different types. There is ADHD, primarily hyperactive type, which, you know, the children, it's kind of self-explanatory, they're very hyperactive.
You can't miss them.
Okay, yeah.
Also very, typically impulsivity goes along with the hyperactivity. There is ADHD, primarily inattentive type, and that is more what we used to call ADD, where children are just, you know, have a hard time paying attention, but they're not necessarily active. They just have a hard time sustaining attention or completing tasks, remembering things, that kind of thing. And then there's ADHD combined type, which is children that experience both hyperactivity and the impulsivity that goes along with it, and a great deal of difficulty with sustaining attention.
Okay. Now, I know today, though, we're going to just kind of focus on the ADHD.
Okay.
So now you kind of told us a little bit about the characteristics, but talk to us a little more in depth about the characteristics. Because I think a lot of times people will see a child that is hyperactive, and the first kind of thought that will come to some people's minds, and I know I better speak for myself, is, they just need a stern hand, if you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
But it's more to it than that. It really is.
It really is. For most of these children, they can't control those impulsive behaviors, that activity level. They need that sensory input, and they just have to be busy. A lot of times they act before they think, so they have a hard time making the correct choices or the right choices for them. They need a lot of structure to help them know what comes next and where to go next, and just to give them clues as to how they're to behave.
Okay. Now, if you're a parent and you have a child, you kind of am thinking, you know, something's a little different here. What advice would you give the parent? in terms of, how to go about figuring out getting that, diagnosis?
You want to start from the preschool side?
From the preschool side, because a lot of preschool children are busy, and that doesn't
Oh yeah, they're
necessarily
very.
mean that
I have a 2-year-old.
right. Mine's 5.
Okay.
So for very young children, preschool age, you would look at how that child's behavior is affecting their life. If they are so hyperactive and so impulsive that they are literally a danger to themselves or to other people, they get hurt often, or other people get hurt because they play too rough. That might be an indication that it's, you want to do something. If they have a really hard time making friends, if they become, that child in their daycare or in their neighborhood that other children don't want to play with, or their parents won't allow them to play with them, that happens a lot of times in neighborhoods, then, that's an indication that, that child's behavior is so significant that they might want to seek some assistance.
Okay.
School-age children typically have a hard time getting started, getting their work started. Homework tends to be the first opportunity that I hear from parents. A lot of times it just takes him hours and hours to get the homework done. And I sit there with him and he just has a hard time just completing that work or even getting started. So, and then of course teachers right off the bat tend to have an eye for kids who just can't sit still. Fidgety, have to get up, seems like a million times to go to the pencil sharpener. They want to go to the bathroom, they just want to move. So teachers have a good eye for those types of children.
Now, if you feel that your child falls into, that category, then what should you do as a parent? Should you take the child to the pediatrician, or,
Yes.
how?
That's a good place to start, and that's what we ask. One of the first questions we ask, even with preschoolers, is have you discussed this with your pediatrician initially? Not necessarily because we want them to get on medication, but it is a medical diagnosis. We don't make those diagnoses in the school system. We can assist with making the diagnosis with the doctor itself by giving rating scales to teachers and doing observations, but we don't make those diagnoses as part of our jobs here at the school system.
Okay. Now, you know what, in doing research for the show, I came upon some information that said that it seems that more boys tend to be ADHD than girls. At this point, have they been able to figure out why that is?
Sometimes it's a matter of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Some boys tend to be a little more likely to have the hyperactivity component, which makes them the squeaky wheel. It makes their behavior disruptive, whereas girls are more likely to have the inattentive type. So, it may not be obvious at first that they're not paying attention or not completing the work because they don't stand out. They're not acting out or being disruptive. So I think that's a big part of it.
And that's true. Boys tend to be more rambunctious anyway.
Yes.
So they get that attention even without necessarily having any other activity level problems. They're often like the bulls in the china shop. They just go bouncing from one wall to the next or one area to the next. And so that's I think part of it. Sometimes studies are showing maybe some genetic connections with ADHD. Sometimes we'll hear parents say he was just like his father, or that kind of thing.
Okay.
So, but none of that is very strong. So there's lots of research that goes on looking into the various aspects as to what might cause it.
Okay.
Those kinds of things.
Because then sometimes I've heard, and that's totally unprofessional information, but I've heard where maybe the parents have had drug use, been involved with drugs and that type of thing. You just never know, though.
No, and there was some research early on that kids who had frequent ear infections often appeared hyperactive because of the fluid that would build up in their eustachian tubes. So there's lots of theories that have been investigated, but as you said, there's no real hard and fast evidence as to a cause of ADHD.
Now, with that in mind, once you do take the child to the pediatrician, sometimes I'm sure the pediatrician will say, yeah, clearly this, and prescribe medication, correct?
Some feel comfortable with that. Sometimes pediatricians will refer out to a psychiatrist because they feel, that it's something that a specialist needs to see. So it really depends on the child's pediatrician themselves.
Yeah.
And how can medication help the child?
Sometimes medication will do just what it needs to do, and it will give the kids enough of help so that they're able to control those behaviors themselves with consistency and structure in the home and in the classroom. Sometimes you may prescribe counseling to go along with the medication to help with those social issues that go along with ADHD. So it just depends. Sometimes if that medication will take care of it, then that's a good thing. And we don't need to do anything but monitor that medication and how it affects the student. Other times we have to just keep watch of the behaviors and help the doctor manage the medicine based on the behaviors and how well it controls the behaviors.
Now, and I know for those who may not be aware, of what we do in the school system, the parents can bring that medication to school, correct?
Yes.
And what is do you all kind of know just roughly the procedure for that?
Oh, certainly. There's a form that the doctor has to complete telling what medication is prescribed and what the dosage is, and when it's to be given, if it's to be given at school. And of course it has to be in an original bottle with the prescription label on the bottle with all of that information as well. Okay. And then it's stored there at the school. And
there's a medical clerk that at a certain time? Yeah, medication clerk.
And it may be, the school secretary or somebody like that, they're doing dual duty, but every single school has someone that's assigned as the medication clerk, and it has gone through training.
Yes.
I believe it's annual training.
It is
in terms of how to administer medications, how to keep records of, what medications they've administered, that kind of thing. Because some children take medication, every day at school.
That's right.
And some children have medications. Like my son has a seizure disorder, and so he has a certain type of medication that is supposed to be given only if he has a seizure that lasts more than 5 minutes. So, they're trained to do things like that as well.
Okay. And what types of medications do you know that are out there? I've heard, of course, Ritalin. I think a lot of us have.
Drugs like Ritalin, Concerta, Vyvanse. Ritalin, Concerta, and Vyvanse are all stimulant medications. Strattera is a non-stimulant, and I think there's a couple other non-stimulants.
There's an Adderall XR is.
Adderall is a stimulant. Right.
It is.
Right.
Those are the more common ones that we see.
Okay.
It really just depends on the doctor or the psychiatrist that you're seeing, how what he or she likes to prescribe to start with.
Okay.
It's one of those things that you have to monitor very closely to see if you have the right fit. And then, of course, children grow and gain weight, and you have to change the dosage. So you have it really requires careful monitoring.
Yeah. And I know during the break we were talking about, or before coming on the show, we were talking about how I remember observing a child that was clearly on Ritalin or one of the medications.
Exactly.
And he was just so calm. It was just almost kind of scary.
Yes.
So you were telling me then, of course, then the dosage would need to be adjusted for him, probably.
More than likely, yes.
Yeah, because I thought, baby needs to go home.
We don't want them sleeping in class.
Yeah.
And you don't want to medicate their personality away.
Exactly.
They need to be children
That's
first.
true, Heather. That's true. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about some of the alternatives to the medication, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Don't go anywhere. Sit tight for more Get Connected.
Can you consent with me? Imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read. 'Cause every kid across the nation deserves a book to read, and we can make it happen right now.
No, I don't know what you've been told, but kids with books learn so much more.
So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child.
So let's join hands, book people unite.
Unearth hidden passion.
Come on, we'll have a good time.
Planting seeds of inspiration to motivate some magic.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
So what you want to do is, have you already enrolled? You're 25.
What did that just do?
Select the drop-down menu again.
Wait.
Say you're already enrolled. Example here, so don't panic. You're ready to make your payments. Submit. There it is.
Oh my God! I really can't believe it. That's awesome.
Good for you.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arch-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit americansforthearts.org.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Get Connected. Our guests are Lisa Craver, the Cumberland County School Psychological Services Coordinator, and Heather Ayers, a school psychologist in the district. Now, we're discussing ADHD and how children can learn to live successfully with the behavioral disorder. Now, before we went to the break, ladies, we talked about some alternatives, or maybe not so much alternatives, but ways to help keep ADHD under control. Talk to us about that.
Well, as I said, one of the primary ways is to look to medication. We like to try some other things, which is more behavioral in nature, where we work with the teacher in the classroom or teachers that the student has, but we also try to encourage the parents to incorporate those same strategies in the home as well. One of the main things is to be consistent, have consistent rules, consistent bedtimes, so that the child or student knows exactly what is supposed to happen when. Heather, you want to talk about picture schedules that we use with kids with ADHD?
Yes, for our little ones, they have no sense of time, they can't read. Sometimes it helps to convey their schedule to them or their routine to them with pictures. For example, with my son, when we come home, we do his, homework. He's still in preschool, so it's not big.
Okay.
We do homework, and then he gets a snack, and then he watches TV. So I have a picture of his homework, a picture of his snack cup, and a picture of the TV, and I just move a clothespin from one to the other, and that really helps him sit there, for the 5 or 10 minutes that we do academic work, because he knows he's going to get his snack and then get to watch TV, so he doesn't feel like I'm going to torture him forever.
Right.
I think for a lot of kids, it's not knowing how long they're going to have to endure this thing they don't really like to do.
It's a sense of anxiety.
Yes. If they know it's going to be over soon and they know they're going to get to do something they like after it's over, they're much more likely to sit and comply, even if it's difficult for them.
Okay.
In the classroom, we try to ask teachers to break assignments up into chunks, so that if they have 10 questions to do or 20 questions to do, give them a certain number to do, and then let them have a stretch break. We'll give them time to stand up so that they can kind of get the wiggles out, and that gives their system a little more stamina to be able to sit down. Sometimes we use more direct behavioral methods where we're reinforcing appropriate behavior or skills more frequently, and that may come in the form of a sticker chart that they keep on their desk, and every time the teacher walks by, she may either draw a smiley face or put a sticker on the chart if the student is behaving appropriately or doing what he or she is supposed to be doing at that time. Sometimes we'll just send them on an errand, give them a little work to do. Check out some books from the media center, and Charlie, I need you to take these books back to Miss so-and-so in the media center, and give them a chance to get some sensory input in, so they have time to get what they need so that they can slow their system down and sit for a little while. I've known teachers to have kids stand up and do jumping jacks beside their desk before they needed to sit for a lecture, or so that they could really listen to what the lesson was going to be for the next 10 or 15 minutes.
Now, let me ask you this, and I hate to interrupt you because I know you've got some more good information on that, but let's say, for instance, do most of our educators know these different strategies so that if you have a child that's in a classroom and he or she is ADHD, the teacher will know how to work with that child? I mean, is there professional development for our teachers?
We do have professional development. We offer embedded professional development through our student services department, and which includes strategies for students who have attention deficit disorder or who are impulsive. Most teacher training programs actually do hit the highlights, so that teachers are able to have the initial skills to work with all students in that realm. Now, we may be asked to come in and consult when they have a particular student who's not responding to those basic skills that they're taught in their training programs. But we do offer strategies. We actually have some of ours online that we have offer for teachers to be able to get to as well.
And how would they access that? With Cumberland County Schools website?
Yes.
And then click on department?
Yes.
And then
comes through the student services and psychological services.
Okay.
So you just go down that ladder of go to the website and go to student services, go to psychological services, and you should be able to get to it from there.
Okay. Just a couple of clicks, but you can get there.
But if they don't have if they have trouble, certainly they're welcome to email either one of us or call. We'll be happy to walk them through it.
Give us your phone number there in your office.
The office number is 678-2438.
Repeat it again.
678-2438.
Okay, that's good. And then now let me ask you this: strategies for dealing with that older student, that doesn't buy into the sticker system and all of that.
I think first and foremost, it's important to make use of any opportunities for movement that child may have. For instance, PE class is really big. For kids that are even in late elementary school, resources are very important. And sometimes when a child misbehaves, sometimes it's instinctual to say, well, no recess for you, but that child may even have more difficulty in the afternoon after recess because they didn't get a chance to move around. A lot of older students have learned to kind of conquer the fidgeties. They can stay in their seat, but they have a lot of difficulties with organization, with keeping their belongings together, with turning in their homework, with keeping up, and particularly for assignments that are like projects that have to be done over a lengthy amount of time, keeping up with what's due when and that kind of thing.
And organizing their locker.
Yes.
I'm sure we start seeing that middle schoolish.
Yes.
High school, middle school, and high school. Wow.
And one of the strategies we suggest for kids that age is to, get them a binder, use color, folders and color coding to help them organize their binder, and then sit down with them once a week. And at the middle school and high school, this is going to have to be their parents going to have to do this, but sit down with them once a week, go through the binder. Did you turn this in? Were you supposed to? And organize it for them, because eventually children are no longer children. They grow up into adults, and they need to learn how to cope with ADHD and learn these strategies, and that's a way of teaching them to do that. So that, as a parent, you would kind of, wean yourself off and let your child organize themselves more and more on their own.
Exactly. And then, when we were talking just a little earlier, you mentioned the exercise, but I know that I'm sure that diet and exercise are factors.
Definitely
correct?
helps. Definitely helps.
So what, as far as diet is concerned, because sugar is sugar really?
Is sugar, and it does tend to have a negative effect on kids with hyperactivity and with difficulties and impulsivity. Those processed foods, those things that are high in fat, too, often have negative effects as well. So you just have to be careful about the number of snacks, I guess, that you eat and the kinds of snacks that you offer the students. That doesn't mean they can't have candy every once in a while, that kind of thing, but it really has to be taken into consideration.
Okay. All right. Oh, go right ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of exercise, sports are a really good outlet for a lot of our kids with ADHD, and especially when it comes to, again, older kids, middle school and high school, it's amazing how much more motivated they are to do their classwork if they know they have to make a certain level, a grade or GPA to stay on whatever sports team they're on. So, it kind of does dual duty. They get the exercise they need, they get the outlet for their activity level, and at the same time, it's something they buy into. You know?
Now, let me ask you this: is ADHD something that you can outgrow? That you can grow out of it eventually? I know I see a lot of adults, and I kind of wonder. I wonder about myself. Let's just be honest. Keep it real.
You don't outgrow it, but you do learn to cope.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
Cope is a big word.
You learn to cope.
And we have to let our kids develop those coping skills. As Heather said, we can shape the behavior and we can provide the prompts that we need to, but we want to back away. We want them to be independent, and we don't want them to be reliant on somebody else to give them that structure or the medication to give them that structure if we can. We want them to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and be an active part in how they deal with the disorder.
Okay. And I'm kind of shifting, but I'm trying to get in before we head out of here. But can children with ADHD have other conditions and illnesses as well? I mean, I'm sure they can, but
they
what do
often
you all?
do.
Okay.
ADHD is very commonly, we call it a comorbid condition. A lot of children with ADHD have learning disabilities, so they may need some services in school, not just for their behavior, but to actually help them with academic deficits. Sometimes children with ADHD are also diagnosed with ODD, or oppositional defiant disorder. What's another? Anxiety disorders.
Is a big one, yes. Then you often see ADHD with other disorders. Children with autism very often have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as well. So sometimes it becomes a matter of determining which comes first, the chicken or the egg, you know.
Okay.
So we don't often see it alone by itself.
It's kind of it's coupled up, married with
other things. You're exactly right.
Now, you know what? I'm looking at the clock on the wall. Are there any final tips or words that you would like to share with our viewers about helping children with ADHD?
Routines.
Consistency.
Gotta keep it. Well, you should do that with children as a whole.
In general, exactly.
Yeah.
But especially with students and children with attention difficulties.
Okay. All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. You'll come back, Heather. We didn't scare you too much, did we?
Not too much.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. Well, on behalf of the Cumberland County School System, we want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of our show and for giving us a chance to help you get connected. Until next time.